Nothing Phone back in the news once again. Two negative things this time, though. One, I'm going to blame them for. The other, I'm not going to blame them for. Just a reminder, if you're new here, or if I show up in your recommended a lot, please go ahead and tussle that subscribe button on our way to 10,000. It certainly means a lot to me. So, Nothing Phone. The spec is the one that they are responsible for, and that is kind of a letdown. I didn't want to see them going with a Snapdragon 778. I would have really liked to have seen the Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 series of processors that they announced, kind of the mid-tier step down from the 8 series of processors powering the thing. Because just from the design and just from what they've put into it and all the rest of it, it's not going to come in sub $400. That would really shock me. If they manage to do that, then, kudos to them. It's absolutely worth it. But that has the look of a phone that's going to be $500, $600, perhaps even pushing $700. And at that price range, you're definitely going to want more, especially since it's not going to be readily available in the United States, which leads to the second part of the conversation here. But if you're going to do that, and not be readily available in the United States, then you're better off as a consumer going with a Poco phone, something like that, where you're going to get the power. The Poco that just came out is fantastic. Sub $400, I think you get a Snapdragon 870. All the power is there. They got some interesting designs as well. And if you're already risking not having the sales and support, not having all the carrier services, bells and whistles, all the things that you could get. You're basically limited to T-Mobile in the United States with these devices anyway as it is. So if you're going to be taking all of those hits, you might as well save a few dollars to get the power that you're getting. So at $400, the Poco phone, for the risks that you're taking or kind of the setbacks that you're setting yourself up for potentially, that's worth it. That's a trade-off. You're getting all this power for $400. Even though there might be some headaches down the line. At $600, $700, not really worth the headaches. The second thing about that is, though, even though it's not available in the United States, it still might run, like we said, on T-Mobile. I'm not going to blame Nothing Phone for that. This is a conversation we've been having for a while because of the way AT&T acts on certain things, like Unihertz with the certifications of certain devices, and why Unihertz hasn't certified certain devices. Why some phones that are perfectly eligible for the networks, and they have all the bands, and they have all the technology, and they could certainly support voice over LTE and all the stuff that these carriers say that they're forcing these upgrades for to improve the quality of the whatever. The actual certification process and what these carriers require in the United States is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And it's not just about what they require monetarily, which is already stupid. I think Tech Odyssey is the one that told me this. The certification, just whatever alone for AT&T, I think is $1 million. And some of these companies, if they're unsure about a product that's coming to market, they don't know how many of these things are going to sell. This is an upstart. A phone like Unihertz, which is basically a Kickstarter campaign. This is a boutique operation. They're just making X amount of units. They're not going to pay $1 million to certify on your network. They're not going to jump through all these engineering hoops just to satisfy whatever nonsense that you come up with. They're not going to have the sales and support and service and the trainers to go out to your store and teach the salespeople how to do it and how to handle the over-the-air updates and all the certifications for that and stuff. We have too many barriers to entry here in the United States to have mid-range phone devices, and it stifles competition. You and I might disagree on where the Nothing Phone is going to be worth it. Personally, I think a lot of people will be paying a lot of money for the design and the ecosystem, right? But typically that's a little confusing. Because typically when you're trying to get an ecosystem off the ground, you want as many handsets in as many hands as possible. If you're using that as the portal to sell whatever. Whether it's apps or it's services, or you're going to have a music service, you're going to have whatever service like Apple. You want as many handsets as possible. And sometimes you even use them as loss leaders just to get them out there. How cheap are those Amazon devices, especially when Prime Day comes along? Why is that? Because they just want Amazon devices in your home because it sucks you in. You say, I don't want to say the name, but it starts with an A. You say whatever, the name that activates your Amazon device, and you order whatever, and then you're buying more on Amazon, you're using the Amazon services, you're using Prime, you're watching video. All that stuff is designed to get you to use their services. So it'd be a little odd if Nothing Phone was providing basically design, and then they came in at a high price just when they're trying to get some saturation, some actual market share to make it have an ecosystem even make sense in the first place. Now, that being said, I don't know who to ask to step in at this point. The fact that there are only 3 carriers in the United States, I know there's other options, but please understand this. If you're with a Mint, if you're with a Consumer Cellular, if you're with a Red Pocket Mobile, a Twigbee, or whatever these other companies are, you're essentially with one of the big 3. They have just leased airtime or lines from either T-Mobile, Verizon, or AT&T. And you know this because when I do that AT&T video about the issues that they've been having on their network with people just being booted off the network with the phones and the devices, people will say, oh, I'm with H2O Mobile. I'm with Mint Mobile. Why was my device kicked off? I'm with Cricket Mobile. Why was my device kicked off? Well, because that Cricket's essentially AT&T. That's why you were kicked off. If AT&T is not allowing the phone on the device, Cricket's not either. So to only have 3 major companies in the United States serving as the competition is bizarre. And it limits competition for what consumers can have. And everyone talks about this tribalism and how everybody's in this mindset of just having either an iPhone, an Apple phone, or a Samsung phone. That's been built in. That's not the fault of the consumer. That's the choice they're given. That's the choice. Those are the devices they could finance in their carrier. Those are the devices that they know are going to work. No problems that the carrier pushes on them because they have the sales and the support and all the rest of it set up. So we can complain about the market saturation for Apple devices and Samsung devices. Why can nobody break in? Well, because of the rules. There's no way for a carrier or a company to come in and say, here's our device, because they got to invest tens of millions of dollars just to get into the U.S. market in the first place to work with all these carriers. And then it's a matter of selling the phones. On top of that, you got to have the financing set up. Because a lot of people in the comments also say, well, who finances the devices? It's a lot of people. It's in the hundreds of millions of people who have devices, 100, coming up on 100, I think the number was, of people who have financed devices because most of them don't care. They don't see $1,200 on a device for a Samsung S22 Ultra. Are people paying that out of pocket? No. They see $35 a month on their bill. You got to have the services for that built in. So that means carrier support or the support of a major bank. Samsung uses TD Bank. All this stuff is time, it's money, and it's also the maturity of a company in the market, which a newcomer isn't going to have. Stifles competition. Shouldn't be a thing. It should be easier for a Nothing Phone to come out. And then they could say, well, $699 at this spec doesn't work. But then a Poco phone could come in with phones in the United States. Hey, $400, $500, have at it with this. Then Apple and Samsung would be forced to respond. And other players in the market. Google would be forced to respond price-wise. That's how competition works. They've basically frozen it out here in the United States. We got nothing competition-wise. You got 3 major companies that basically control the phones that get put into your hand. So it's not Apple's fault. It's not Samsung's fault. I'm not blaming Nothing for not coming into the United States. Companies like Unihertz, Nothing Phone, OnePlus, really, for the most part. They finally cracked the code with T-Mobile, but only barely. It's tough. It's tough. Europe, you have a ton of choices. And you're going to have another one with the Nothing Phone. And let the market decide. Is it too much money? Well, we're going to find out. Is the design worth an extra $200 on a spec like that? We're going to find out. The Europeans are going to decide with their dollars. But something has to change as far as the United States carriers go. It can't just be 3 companies deciding which phones we get to choose from because you get hurt for it. Because you get a choice of about 3 or 4, $8,000, $9,000 phones, and it doesn't work. Just doesn't work. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let me know what you think about the Nothing Phone. Let me know what you think about your carrier. Because T-Mobile is the only hope. You want these phones from overseas. And even then, you're not getting the full services. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.